This is the corner house. There's all sorts of entertainment things here, and I've just been to see Moana. So this is the first available opportunity, and I am only 11 minutes after 8 o'clock. I've got a book out with me to read to you. This is The Empty Stocking, Richard Curtis and Rebecca Cobb. It looks like The Paper Dolls by Julia Donaldson. It's a bit more wordy than some of the others. It was Christmas night, and Mr. and Mrs. Weston were excited as the twins, Sam and Charlie, who both, despite their names, were both girls. Sam was Samantha and Charlie was Charlotte, but as they were never called those names, they were always called Sam and Charlie. They were, as always, twins, having both been born on the 21st of June, Midsummer's Day, 7 years before. But their birthday was not the only thing that they had the same. They looked the same, of course. People who really loved them could see the difference. Sam always wore her hair in plaits, and Charlie had a little scar. A scar on her cheek in the shape of a fork. But actually, as children, they couldn't be more different. And on Christmas night, they were a serious worry because Sam, who was always very well behaved, and Charlie was, well, not to mince words, because this was basically what the story was about. Charlie was quite bad. Not really bad, you know, but very naughty. Not interested in being obedient, quite often grumpy, not very fond of telling complete truths, but very fond of eating sweets and making a filthy racket and having too much fun. Her parents, of course, still loved her to bits and loved her as much as Sam, because that's what parents do. But for instance, her teachers found her very annoying because she was particularly naughty at school. And her next door neighbours hated her because she was very naughty at home. And shopkeepers didn't like her one little bit because she ate a lot of their sweets and very rarely paid for them. Anyway, it was Christmas night, and as usual the family watched Elf, which was just great. Then Dad read them The Night Before Christmas, which was very good, and How the Grinch Stole Christmas, which was even better. Then Mum sat down at the piano and made them all sing Santa Claus is Coming to Town. And, as always, when they got to the bit about Santa, knowing that they'd been bad or good, everyone couldn't help just looking in Charlie's direction for a moment. But this was a worry. There was no way Santa wouldn't know that Charlie had been up to all year. So here's the scene. But as usual, it got late. The children put out their stockings at the end of their beds and left a mince pie, a tangerine and a glass of port for Santa by the chimney, and then headed off, very excitedly, to bed. And Charlie said to her dad, "Daddy, do you think Santa will bring me anything this year?" And her dad said, "Yes, of course he will, my darling." But there was no denying it. He was a bit worried. Because this really had been Charlie's naughtiest year yet. What with the whole eating a box of chocolates incident, and the glue in the DVD episode, and the ice down the back of the teacher's dress moment, and the worst things. Then Mum and Dad went upstairs to bed pretty early too, because they'd heard a story about a mum and dad who stayed up late and actually bumped into Santa Claus on the stairs, and Santa Claus had scarpered because they'd had to fill the stockings for their kids themselves and make up for Santa's hasty exit. So, 11:10 they got in their pyjamas, turned off the lights, and even though they whispered till midnight, at least they knew that Santa could get on with his job undisturbed. Oh my goodness. Oh, here comes Santa. And of course, that's exactly what Santa did. About 1:15 in the morning he arrived in England from Spain and was in very good mood because he was getting quite near home. He moved up swiftly from Kent, rushed through London, sped on to Suffolk, where Sam and the naughty Charlie lived. He landed in the garden and placed the hungry reindeer near a hedge. By the way, look out for that next year if you've got a garden. You normally find a bit of your hedge has been mightily munched on Christmas morning. See, I didn't know that. And then he headed down the chimney to the living room. Dusting himself off, he crept past Mum and Dad's door and into the room where the twins slept. And there he filled one stocking. And left the other completely empty. Because Charlie had indeed been very bad this year. He'd never liked doing it, but sometimes Santa had to get tough. And this year, in Charlie and Sam's room, one of the getting tough moments. He'd left them in their room quickly, drank the port, gobbled the whole tangerine and the pie, swooshed up the chimney and headed on. He left the house totally still. Mum and Dad had no idea of the terrible thing that had just happened. Neither did Sam and Charlie. One stocking hung light and empty, and the other swung with the weight of all the wonderful presents. And for 3 hours, nothing moved. Not even a mouse, or a fox, or an owl, or a badger. All of which you can see in this picture if you look closely enough. And then, just by chance as fate would have it, at 4 o'clock in the morning, naughty Charlie woke up and looked at the end of the bed and saw dun, 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 a gorgeous full stocking. Oh dear, perhaps Santa can't tell the difference neither. Because you see, Santa hadn't looked very carefully, and when Charlie and Sam were sleeping, you couldn't see Sam's plaits, and you couldn't see the scar on Charlie's cheek. So they looked exactly and completely and utterly the same, with disastrous results. Charlie was thrilled about the stocking, and because she was quite naughty, she decided that she would go and sneak a peek at her parents at her presents even, before everyone else had woken up. But as she went down the bed, she looked across at her sister's bed and saw an empty stocking, and she stopped dead. She just sat there, and she thought very hard with a big frown. Because no one had ever really bothered to notice. And amongst all her naughtiness, Charlie really loved her sister. And sometimes the actual reason she was naughty was because she loved making Sam happy. And sometimes because she was really naughty, it was because she loved making Sam laugh. And sometimes when she was really, really naughty, it was because other people were picking on Sam. And Charlie was certainly not having any of that. And then Charlie thought about her sweet sister's face in the morning when she reached for her stocking, all excited about the toys and sweets and games she'd find inside, and then found nothing at all. She thought about how Sam would try and be brave, and Sam's chin would start to wobble. She thought about how she felt whenever Sam was sad. Not sad because Charlie had sat on her, but really properly in her heart sad. And then, very, very, very quietly so she didn't wake Sam up, naughty Charlie started to move presents from her full stocking into Sam's empty one. Present by present, one after the other, in a totally mathematical manner, even if she really liked something, until both stockings were half full, with exactly the same number of presents, because half of a lot was better than nothing. And when she'd completely made sure that the stockings were the same, Charlie breathed a sigh of relief and went back to her bed and back to sleep. The pages are quite thick. And everything went quiet again. At home, but not, as it turns out, on Santa's sleigh, because Santa was getting very near the North Pole when he suddenly thought something unexpected was happening. A light started to flash on his good-bad-o-meter, the machine that told him which children had been good and which had been bad. Santa looked very surprised indeed, because this had never happened before. There had been a last-minute change. 45 minutes later, a very fat, exhausted old man with a beard landed on the lawn in Suffolk with a very munched hedge. And a minute later, he was on the stairs again, creeping towards the twins' room. And when he popped his head into the room, he saw 2 half-filled stockings, and he smiled. And then, swiftly, because it was getting very close to the time the children might be awake, he filled both stockings to the brim and crept back downstairs. But just as he put his head in the chimney, he had one last thought and headed back upstairs. One last time he popped one little thing into Charlie's stocking. This is their house. Five minutes later, Santa flew away in the highest of spirits, and indeed, just like he used to in the old days, he hollered for all to hear, "Happy Christmas to all, and to all a good night," which actually woke good Sam up, who looked down at her bed and saw a completely full stocking, just as she had expected. Then she looked across at naughty Charlie's bed, a little bit worried, and saw, thank heavens, her sister's stocking was completely full as well. So she woke Charlie, who for some reason Sam could never quite explain, looked very shocked by their full stockings. "I suppose," Sam said to her mother later, "it must have been because Charlie didn't expect to get any presents at all this year." Then Sam and Charlie both rushed into Mum and Dad's room and opened all their presents one after the other. And everyone was very happy indeed. Look, see? But when the stockings were completely empty, Charlie happened to put her hand in just one more time, just to check. She was surprised to find a small bright badge that looked a bit like Rudolph's nose. She never showed it to anyone because she was a bit embarrassed about it, but she always kept it because secretly she was very proud. And secretly, although she knew sometimes she was very naughty indeed, she also thought it might be true. It said just 2 words. Good girl. Good night.